everyone, Kareem here, and today I have the pleasure to interview John Hall, who is the president at DeKalb County United. John is also the co-founder and former president of the board of directors at the Midwest Premier League. John, thank you for taking the time for joining us today. How's it going?
It's going great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Let's just take a trip down memory lane, take us back in time and share how you got involved in the beautiful game.
I was an average soccer player in our little small rural community here. Not terribly small, but somewhat small. I was an average soccer player that grew very passionate about the game and got into coaching when I sort of got done playing. I played at a JUCO and got into coaching, youth soccer stuff. Then I was in my late teens, early 20s, and then I kind of burned out of trying to keep parents happy. So I got away from the organization of the sport a little bit. Always a big fan and supporter of some of the clubs, but got back into coaching at that Kishwaukee College where I played. Got back into coaching there about 12 years ago. Then they shut the program down, so I got out of coaching. And then a few years later, my more recent soccer career into the admin side of things, I discovered a club down the road from us in Aurora, Illinois, called the Aurora Borealis, that no longer exists as we speak. But I didn't really know there was like this high level amateur kind of like regional travel kind of thing. And some of the guys that were younger than me that I still kicked around in the rec leagues with, I was sending them over to try out for this club. And then the next year, another club about 30 minutes from us started. And then I thought, man, I don't know. Why are we exporting local guys? We should just have our own thing. And then didn't realize the spiral I was on to actually start DeKalb County United and ultimately get into league admin and creation, and found like a whole nother level of the sport that I didn't know existed, that I didn't know how it operated. And I've just, kind of re-engaged in the boardroom of running a club and a league and some of those things. So even from an average player, you can still accomplish pretty cool things in the sport.
Yeah, definitely. Why'd you choose coaching? Why not be an agent, analyst? Why'd you choose coaching?
I didn't really have anybody to tell me that there was options like that, like, what's the path to that? I think now if I could have a parallel life, I think like being an agent would be kind of fun.
Yeah.
But the natural opportunity in town was to, get into youth soccer and coach youth teams. And 20 some years ago, I mean, there really wasn't any money in it. It was basically, you got a few $100 stipend or whatever, and you put in a ton of time, and it wasn't quite the financial powerhouse it has become. But I just enjoyed it. Loved being around the kids, loved teaching. I was always a better teacher of the sport than I was a player of the sport. So it just kind of fit, and I enjoyed it, and it was the natural path in our community.
Understood. So did you get involved with DeKalb County United before you created the Midwest Premier League?
Yeah, so we started DKCU came up with the concept in my head by myself in like the very end of 2016. We sort of founded and launched the club in 2017, and then we played our first season in 2018. And the way the Midwest Premier League came around, we played in the UPSL with other clubs from our region. And after the first year, really kind of realized it wasn't the right thing for us. Just didn't like the way that the league overall aligned with what the clubs needed and the support system we needed as young clubs. We needed a lot of help. And the UPSL at that time did not offer much. And so we gave them our feedback. The second year was no better. In fact, probably a step backwards. So it was clear that the constructive feedback that the member clubs were giving that particular league at the time was not being listened to. And a group of us in the area said, well, why are we sending money to Southern California to tell us what's best for us? Let's just start our own thing here with like-minded clubs and good people. And so we started the Midwest Premier League. We were going to launch for 2020. And obviously we didn't play in 2020. So we had like a full almost year and a half ramp up. And then we played our first season in the Midwest Premier League with 20 clubs in, I think, 5 states that first season in 2021. And then I think we had 27 in 2022. I think we had about 35 in 2023. So the trajectory's up in the Midwest. And it's been a cool experience to be a part of it, even though I'm not on the board anymore. Obviously so close to the action of what's going on there.
Understood. So, for the viewers that are watching, how do you guys even form a league? I talked to Peter Weltz, who you're familiar with, about starting the NISA League. What went into starting the Midwest Premier League?
That's a good question, because we didn't have anybody, certainly with Peter's experience, involved. It was a bunch of us misfit toys that most of us were new to this. I don't know, you call it elite amateur. It's not really semi-pro, but it's not rec league stuff, right? And many of us were new, and we barely knew what we were doing running our clubs. But one thing we identified quickly was obviously travel and costs of travel are a major constraint at this level. So we had to make sure we were picking clubs that were within our geography. So that was important. And I think structurally we had to figure that out, right? Does somebody own this, or are we going to be a nonprofit? How do we do this? Because we want it to be member run and member controlled and all these things. So we opted to go the nonprofit route. So there was no owner. And we literally wrote bylaws and wrote articles of incorporation, and we did all the things to start a business and did our nonprofit paperwork. And that's why it's run by a board of directors, which is elected by the member clubs every year at our AGM. And so our now 35 or whatever member clubs have an opportunity to raise their hand or nominate somebody to join the board and make rules and change minimum standards and impact expansion and all those kinds of things. So it's as democratic as it can be in our region of about 13 states here in region 2 of the USASA. So the nonprofit thing to me was a very easy way to do it without having an owner that gets to make all the decisions.
Understood. So you guys said, forget UPSL, we're going to start our own thing. How many of you guys came together to put this together?
So the scary thing was, and we had probably 13 or 14 clubs that played in the UPSL at that time, at the end of 2019 or so. 13 or 14, we're all on a call trying to figure out, what do we do? This league is not the right answer. NPSL is too expensive. USL League 2, I'm trying to think when that switched to League 2 from the PDL about that time, but it was all too expensive. And, we're bootstrapping, trying to make $50 selling t-shirts. Like, we can't go to these other leagues. It's not really an option. So 13 or 14 of us on a call, and everybody kind of said, yeah, if we start something, I'll go. If you go, I go. Cool. Union Dubuque up in Dubuque, Iowa was the first club to publicize that they were leaving the UPSL to join this new Midwest Premier League. RWB Adria in Chicago was next, then us, and then Cedar Rapids Inferno. So all 4 of us came from one conference of the UPSL. And then after those 4, all those other clubs that had said, if you go, I go, they kind of like, whoa, pump the brakes here. And I don't want to jump too quick. Well, now, so we kind of the 4 of us were sort of exposed, because 4 is not really the right number for a league, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh, well, now what do we do, right? So we got to hey, we were all on the same page. Now all of a sudden a few of us took a leap, and now we're kind of out there. Well, through some conversations and just talking to people in our beliefs and what the league was about and how we intended to operate. We brought in Rockford FC, which is right in, again, they're 45 minutes from where I'm at. And we brought in Illinois Diablos down in Bloomington, Illinois, and we had 6. Well, that's good enough. This isn't about crazy rapid expansion. Let's get every team we can. This is about finding good partners, controlling things we can control, setting rules that we can all abide by, setting accountability that we can all, we're in it together. But like I said, when 2020 canceled because of COVID, I think we probably were up to 12 in total. Then, some Michigan clubs started coming, whatever. But we were basically just going to start with 6 and just see what happened. And we knew if we stuck to our beliefs that other clubs would find it interesting and want to be a part of it. And that's really what happened. Just kind of have a mission statement that guides your decisions and then don't look back.
Understood. Were you guys sanctioned by the USSF?
We did, and we still do. We run under the Illinois State Soccer Association, so we are part of USASA. But ISSA in Illinois handles all of our player registration and some of that admin stuff that, again, we're all busy running clubs. We don't have time to be doing our own admin and player passes. And so we were able to run under ISSA and then we can still have our clubs compete in the amateur cup and other things like that, state cups, stuff like that. So that was the easiest way to make things easy on those club operators who were also spending their precious volunteer time on the league board and writing these documents from scratch and all this other stuff.
Understood. So then to run a league, unless it's pro, you wouldn't need the USSF.
Yeah, we make it up as you go. Have our own rules, follow our own rules. If there were things that were elevated, which I don't think there ever really was, the ISSA as our, I don't know what the right term is, kind of like as our sponsor organization. The Illinois State Soccer Association would step in and provide support if there was a disciplinary action or something that was beyond our normal bylaws, rules, operations manual. So really, we had all the support we needed. It was just about getting teams on the field and giving it a shot. And then we appointed a commissioner who was a volunteer that first year as well. And he was kind of the independent voice because the rest of us were representing a club, obviously. So we thought having one independent commissioner made sense. And we found the right guy in Andy Hayes and kind of worked out really good. Just doing it small and taking care of ourselves worked out well.
That's pretty cool. It's super excited to have you on because you're the second person I've interviewed to start a league. So that's a huge thing in the US. It's not something easy to do. And you guys are now at what, around like 30 plus clubs?
Yeah, I think we had 35 this past season. And it's a summer, it's like a May through July season, similar to USL2. And yeah, so we grew, like I said, we went from 20 to 27 to 35. So, I mean, you're adding 25% a year. That's pretty good growth. Now, again, it wasn't growth just to grow, but certainly our intention down the road is to cover all of Region 2, which is 13 states. So we got to get East Ohio, we got to get west into the Dakotas, and we got to get up into Minnesota and down into Kentucky and Missouri and stuff with our Gateway Conference. And there's plenty of room to grow. And again, finding the right people running these clubs that believe in what we're about, which isn't a money grab because nobody's getting a big check at the end of the year here. It's about just doing the right thing and growing clubs in our communities to make the sport more popular and to support each other and just kind of doing things what we think is the right way.
Absolutely. So for any investors, interested watching that want to invest into soccer, why would they come and invest into your league?
Well, that's the interesting question because we don't really have outside investment at all. I mean, the whole thing is operated by the member clubs. We actually have not even taken the time to look for sponsors or anything because our fees are more affordable than the UPSL. Clubs have more control. in terms of the day-to-day rules, minimum standards, costs, there just isn't really a need for outside investment at this point. So we would rather, instead of your club coming into the Midwest Premier League and then helping the Midwest Premier League find investment, we'd rather you go find investment for your own club in your community, because ultimately strong clubs make a strong league. So, and we've had clubs that folded. We've tried to help. We share information, and there's just some that don't gain that traction where that outside investment from a partner. And every club's set up differently. Some are nonprofits, some are LLCs, some are just run out of a shoebox in someone's garage. I don't know how they do it, but certainly that investment helps more at the grassroots, like on the ground at the club level, than it does at the league level.
Understood. How involved are you guys in the process of, someone interested to start a team in the league, and how do you guys hold their hand throughout the whole process, or do you guys give them the blueprint, say, hey, here, this is how you guys do it?
So it's a good question. We try to strike the balance because, new clubs often don't know what they don't know. And we as a league, as much as we try to share, we don't have time to hold somebody's hand. So we really want clubs that have some experience. Maybe they haven't ever played at the regional level like we're at, but maybe they've operated a year or two at their city league or whatever, right? Because we want to make sure they have a little bit of infrastructure. It's not the president is the head coach and the team captain. Like, we want them to have a staff of people working on it to handle some of the marketing requirements, things like that. Now, that's not to say we don't help younger clubs. Our club now has been around. This would have been our 6th season this past year. So we try to put out a lot of content. We have our Build It podcast that we do in the off season, that we share stories of, whether it's what other clubs have done well, community engagement, volunteerism, financial information, and how to make smart decisions. So our club does that. We also have I think it's called a new club or club startup packet, where a few years ago we put together the physical documents of, here's a sample business plan and a budget, and here's some notes on marketing, here's some notes on community outreach. We got a downloadable PDF that we sell through our website that is just gives somebody that wants to start a club from scratch, it gives them just some of the documents to use as a reference to get started. Does that mean they're the right fit for the Midwest Premier League? Not necessarily, but there are some that are brand new that just swing for the fences, and they've got their stuff together. They know what they're about, and we believe we're a great partner for these new clubs, but that doesn't mean, we necessarily can handle every single club that wants to join. So it's a little bit of a fine line, right? You want to help the right people in the right clubs, but we also, the league fees aren't such that we have paid full-time staff to hold hands all the way through it.
Got it. Midwest Premier League is a member-ran home for elite amateur and semi-professional clubs in the Midwest. You guys are also affiliated with the NISA League. How are you guys affiliated with NISA?
So a few years ago, NISA was on a little bit of a campaign to bring in affiliate lower leagues, non-professional leagues like us. There was some incentives with solidarity payments and some of the support and things like that to affiliate with NISA. And we had some club. We had Detroit City was playing in NISA. Detroit City's under 23s played in the Midwest Premier League. So we had some natural ties there. It just kind of it gave an opportunity that we thought, well, maybe some players will get some extra looks from these pro clubs because of this affiliation or whatever. And really, it's kind of not. It hasn't really shaped up into much in terms of day-to-day interaction with NISA. We also got some spots, opportunities for our clubs to join the NISA Independent Cup. I don't think anybody even did that this year from the Midwest Premier League, but the concept was right. I don't think it was implemented the right way on either side to really maximize the potential of a relationship. Again, at our level, we are spread thin. Everybody has lives and day jobs and runs a club. And then, the babysitting relationship, and that's not the right term, but just kind of like hand-holding relationships, whether it be with a bigger league or a lower league or whatever, it's very difficult. We just run out of time. And so we maintain our affiliation with NISA, although, as I said, it's kind of in the background at this point.
Got it. In terms of club culture and values, what principles do you emphasize to ensure that everyone in the organization is aligned with the league's mission?
You talking from the league perspective?
Yeah, or club.
Yeah, I think our club. So we're in a community. I'll start locally. We're in a community of about 110,000 people. Northern Illinois universities here in DeKalb. We've got some pretty good resources for a small town, and we're sort of on an island because we're about an hour and 10 minutes west of Chicago and all those great suburbs, but there's about 25 minutes of corn between us and kind of the far west suburbs. So we're on a bit of an island. So we're able to really pull this like local feeling and pride out of our community, even though there's a couple different towns here. We kind of can bring people together. So our mission is to unite the community through soccer. And so that's coming to our games, that's hosting camps, that's the club supporting other nonprofits, things like that. So that mission, along with inspiring our youth, which we do, I think, a very good job of, that kind of dictates all our decisions. A lot of times you sit around a board meeting and somebody will come up with an idea, and the question is, does that unite the community through soccer, or does it inspire the youth? And if the answer is no, then we don't do it generally. So that's kind of how we work that. The league's a little different. There's a lot of clubs that, we're all partners in 3 different conferences. And so I'm much closer to those clubs in my conference. And we have clubs that do everything perfectly as far as following standards and promoting the league and all these things. And there's other clubs that just don't have those resources. So I say this all the time. We're striking the balance between those who can do it and those who are someday going to be able to do it at this level, on and off the field. Both are important. So we just try to keep the communication lines open, share things that work, share things that don't. We offer documents to each other. If I got a pitch deck for sponsors, we post that in our league chat so that other people can see it. Give them some inspiration. Maybe there's some idea there they didn't think of. And I'd say, we need everybody. We need a club in every community. So that's my personal mission, is help clubs grow and sustain and be around for the long term, so we can have these rivalries of 30, 40, 50, or 100 years someday, hopefully well beyond my own involvement.
For sure. I want to take a few steps, John, back in regards to when you got involved in club admin. You're wearing a lot of hats, you're managing a lot of things. Did you have previous experience, or was that first time experience? And how quick or how long did it take for you to adapt to that position?
So when we started the club, I had no experience in sport, anything. And it's funny, your chat with Peter Wilt, he talked about how there was no sports management really program. There was a couple in the country maybe back when he was starting in sports. It's kind of the same for me. I was never a sports. I work in construction for a day job, and I do sales and estimating, but I'd never gone out and raised money for like this concept, like a startup thing like this. And so I had to explain to people, I had to learn very quickly what I thought this club could mean in our community. And so you have to walk in and talk to a bar owner or a bank president, and you got to have your stuff together. And I'd never had to do that before, but it was great, and I learned a lot about marketing that I'd never had to do. I don't know much, but I learned about brand building. I learned about, again, having a mission. I learned about some of the, we set up that nonprofit, then we set up the league nonprofit. So I learned about that process a little bit. I learned a little bit more of the importance of networking in the community. I started going to Chamber of Commerce events. I started going to these little community booth exhibit things where you set up a table and we set up in front of Walmart one Saturday and gave out whatever. I don't even remember what it was now. But just people seeing your brand and being out there,
Yeah.
all things I'd never done in my real job. Um, and it's kind of just one of those things where you go, this thing's going to be awesome. So we got to go for it. And I was fortunate to find a whole bunch of awesome volunteers early on. And it wasn't just me doing it myself. And we were able to get out there and never create enough of an impact, but we created an impact so that we could sustain from year 1 to year 2 and so on. And we're still here.
Nice. Do you guys have any key sponsorships that are helping you guys?
Yeah, all local. I mean, it's all local companies.
Yeah.
Again, like I said, something I'd never done before is go out and ask for money. I sold candy bars and stuff when I was a kid, right? For $1 here, $1 there. But I never walked in and said, hey, I want to we're going to start a semi-pro-ish soccer club and it's going to be awesome. And here's why. And please write us a check. And that was, for the most part, a good experience. It was a great experience actually, because you learn a lot, but you get those rejections and you go like, well, okay, so what did I learn from that experience? Okay, how can I be ready to answer that question next time? Or what we try to do now that we're, quote unquote sustainable is, okay, well, the sponsorship wasn't right for this business. Well, what can I offer them? Because the club, we're not the type of club that goes like, hey, they didn't sponsor us, so screw them. We're
Yeah.
the type that goes, okay, what can we do to make them care about us so they appreciate what we do now? So if their business does sponsor a 5K for animals, well, what can we do to promote that event that they're already sponsoring? And maybe they'll go, wow, these guys actually promote things even though we didn't help them, they actually help us. And it's not, those are not transactional type of, let's see if we can get this figured out here for next year. That's long term, right? That's ingraining yourself in the community where I think one thing that we see clubs all the time, they say, hey, come watch our game Saturday. It's going to be awesome. But never during the week did they say anything that was going on in their community. Did they do anything for their community? They didn't give anybody a reason. Well, if people wanted to watch soccer, they go watch soccer, or your community would already have a club. People aren't, we don't say come watch a soccer game. We say come have fun at the game. And we sell beer at games at NIU, and we have bounce houses and face painters, and it's like minor league baseball at one of our games. Now, we're not getting 3,000-4,000 people, but we don't have to. We will get there over time if we stick to our core values and we continue to we have to do more for the community than they do for us. That's our mission is to unite the community, which by definition we can't then exclude people.
Yeah, I really like that that brought a lot of things into light in this moment right now in regards to, I like that you're saying that. Well, first of all, I think you're in one of the best vehicles. Soccer brings people together, and then two, you're not only saying, hey, you already said come out to the game. You're engaging with your community. You're giving them a reason, creating relationship, engagement, awareness, and saying, hey, we're also having a soccer event. Come be a part of it. Come have fun. Not watch the game. Have fun. Bring your family up. So that's awesome. I love that. And there's a lot of work that goes into that. I think it's pretty cool getting involved with your community in that way, because you're then having those experiences that you've never had or got from your job. So I think that's pretty cool. With saying that, we got a huge wave coming up in the next 2 years, 2026. How are you positioning your club to catch that wave?
I'm listening to podcasts like yours, trying to figure out what everybody else is doing, and then I'm going to do the same thing. I think like one of the things we try to do, it's really hard we don't have the money and the resources to do like these extreme marketing campaigns, but what we've tried to do last November, which was nice in our off season, having a World Cup, we made sure we did watch parties for the US games. We did watch parties for the women's games that didn't occur at 2 a.m. Those ones were attended only by me and my daughter in my living room, but we try to bring the community together around things that aren't DKCU things, to just kind of bring some exposure to those other soccer events, right? We always seem to have a home game or a league game during the Champions League final Memorial Day weekend every year. That would be a great thing, because that Champions League final kind of brings people together in a different way than the World Cup. So really, aside from doing those kinds of outreach things, I haven't figured out how we're going to like really capitalize on this World Cup fever, especially with it. They're not playing in Chicago, and we're a little bit outside that. I don't know that that would matter, but definitely aware of it. And I think the exposure that these World Cups for both men and women bring to the casual fan, right? That helps a lot because we found too, like as we know, like everybody's got a Premier League team now. So we're, at Forward Madison, who I know Peter was a part of that early on. They had a tagline that was like, "Hey, we want to be your second favorite team." Like just admit, and
Oh,
I'm like, well,
yeah, that's pretty cool.
we just want to be your third, and that's kind of just again just keep doing good things for people, and I say this 1,000 times, so anybody that's heard me talk before has heard this. But we're only going to do what the community gives us and go as far as they want us to go. So if the community doesn't want to come to games, doesn't want to sponsor, and doesn't want to be active in our match day and all these other things that we do, then that's fine. Like we don't need to force this thing. But the response has been positive. We're just about to October 1st, we're having our first 2024 meeting for our season that starts in May. And we've got 7 or 8 new volunteers that are going to join the staff, and it's just like there's tons of potential growth because we're bringing in new people, new contacts, new ideas. So we're like constantly refreshing what we're about because I can only think of so many things, and I've probably already tried them all.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I want to shout out Peter Wiltz for the intro to you and for being on the podcast. Get that on the record there. What would you say was the most significant challenge that you faced as a club owner, and how did you overcome it?
Well, I think the first thing, and I think you guys deal a lot with investment, right? Talk about business and stuff. One of the big things that limited us early on was just the finances, right? We didn't have anybody saying, "Hey, this is what I want to do. Here's the budget. Go do it." We had to create the budget and then fundraise for the budget and then meet the budget. And again, having never done that for a startup, let alone a soccer in the U.S., really, that wasn't funded by, youth gets funded by player fees, right? So without funding it through internal fees, how do you do this? So I did what everybody else did, and I reached out to, I reached out to Stockade. I talked to guys up at Minneapolis City. You look at the clubs that are doing it well, Detroit City, Chattanooga. You look at those that have come before you that have done well, and there's only a few because so many have failed. That you, all right, what do they do? And you just do the homework and do the research. And we were able to kind of limp through it. And really, I mean, I've talked about this a few times as well. We got to a point at our board meeting, we had 5 people on our original board. And we got to a point after we launched a few months later, it was like, man, this thing is not getting traction. Do we need to just pull the pin and just be done with it? And we decided to fake it. And no, just keep going. Like, we believe in what we're doing. We believe in why we're doing it. We're all doing it as volunteers. It's not like there's any personal motives or personal gain from like the club needs to keep paying me. No, we just think this is the right thing for our community, and the community needs something to bring our couple of different towns together instead of being so divisive. And so we just believed in it and just kept beating the streets. And we were out talking and hustling. And I mean, I still to this day, anywhere I go, the first thing somebody calls, "Hey, how's the soccer going?" It's like the default icebreaker when I walk in a room now because people know it's what I do. So it's been getting through that first year, making sure we had enough money to get through the first year before we started the first year. I was not going to put my own money into it after all the time I put into it. And the whole board felt the same way. Like, we're doing the work. I'm not going to pay and do the work. Then we're forcing it and the community doesn't need it. So overcoming the financial challenges those first year or two, that was kind of the hard thing. But once we had proof of concept, right, that this is what the club's about, it wasn't a, "Hey, we're going to start this club." oh, we don't know where we're going to play. We don't have a logo yet. We don't know who the coach is. We don't have any players, but will you give us some money? Those were tough pitches. Well, after a year or two, nobody cared about the results on the field, but they were like, oh, people came out and had a good time.
Hmm.
Yeah, I want to be a part of that.
Mm,
And so then it got easier, and we really just kind of like worked through it, literally worked through it to get to the point where we don't have to count pennies anymore.
yeah. So it's kind of that saying that you got to bleed a little bit.
For sure.
Yeah. Um, Managing the P&L, what would you say is, the most, what's eating up the most money, in regards to expense? And then in
Yeah.
regards
So
revenue, what's bringing in the most for you guys?
so we do only get income from sponsors, merchandise, ticket sales, memberships, and then any camps or soccer related things that we do, fund or other fundraisers. We've got I guess one other thing, I guess there's a sixth pillar. We've got a beer partnership with the local brewery in DeKalb. So we've got a beer and a seltzer through them. So we get a little bit of profits back from that. But it's all money raised basically. So our biggest expenses are field expenses. We do pay our coaches, league dues, just game operations. We do spend a little bit more money. Certainly in 23, we spent a little bit more money in marketing. We spent a little bit more on game day operations for fan entertainment, fan engagement stuff. Because we thought, like, we had a skydiver fly in for actually the game we played against Chicago House.
Yeah.
We did a big pediatric cancer fundraiser night, and we spent quite a bit of money to have a skydiver drop in, and had a jersey for a young girl that we were kind of doing a tribute for. But those kinds of things to us, it was like, it's not being done at this level. And we want to be, obviously, we want to win some more trophies on the men's side. Our women's team does pretty well. But we want to be known as a big club, a big amateur club, right? We are millions of dollars from ever being a pro club. And I don't know that this community needs that. So if we
Mhm.
can have an impact as an amateur club, then that's all that matters. So league fees, all this kind of stuff, like all the money we make in income and revenue goes back into the product because we're not shelling out large salaries and office spaces and all this kind of stuff. It's very low overhead, and we can operate ideally if we can keep our profit and loss even. Somebody smarter than me said this once: if you can break even, you can last forever.
Hmm.
So that's all we do. We refuse to put our own money into it, other than if I decide to buy a hoodie or whatever, I pay for my own stuff. I buy my own season tickets. Other than that, I'm not writing, and nobody on the staff is writing a big check to support this thing. It's going to be supported by the whole community, or it won't exist.
Understood. Yeah, that's great. And that's that's pretty cool skydiving out. Uh, that's pretty cool. I haven't heard that one yet, so I like
Yeah,
that.
we like to break the rules a little bit out here in the corn.
Yeah, for sure. Where do you see the league in the next 2 years, especially with the 2026 World Cup coming up? Where do you see the league in your club?
Yeah, so I think from a league perspective, and I don't believe we've shared it necessarily publicly, but we have what we've referred to as the 2030 plan, which we put together in 2020, 2021. But basically, it was a 10-year plan for growth for the Midwest Premier League. Uh, I don't know that it's officially been adopted, but it's unofficially been adopted by the board, and member clubs have been. We walked through it at our AGM last year, and it's kind of a guiding North Star for the league in terms of, like, it's not just chaos of growth. What is it? It's actually like, all right, we're going to grow, and then here's how we're going to build it. And it does involve some promotion relegation with some different tiers. Whereas you go up, the geography expands. As you come down, it gets more localized. It's easier said than done. It looks pretty on a graphic. It's hard to do with clubs coming from all over the place. And then how do we fit? And this year it doesn't work, but next year it could if we get 4 teams. But if it doesn't work this year, do we keep the 4 teams and wait for the other 4? There's a lot of growing pains to that. But there is a written plan in place. I believe it is going to be shared with the Twitterverse here at some point and on our website, social media stuff. But that kind of outlines our growth plan. All in all, it starts with sustainability of the current clubs. And I've said this 1,000 times. Every day that I spend chasing an expansion club is a day that we're not helping one of our current members. So we have to make sure we take care of what we have first. It takes a lot of time in many cases. By the time a club calls and says, hey, I'm interested in the Midwest Premier League, can I get a Zoom meeting? Can I ask you some questions? Can I do this and that and the other thing? All of a sudden, you've got several hours invested into this club that may or may not come. I'd rather spend those couple hours. I'm on the expansion committee still. I'd rather spend those couple of hours on 3 or 4 different calls with current clubs and talking about what worked. How did the season go? What did you do for community outreach? Things like that. So growth is important to continue to create some geographic density, keep travel costs down, create local rivalries, get away fans to travel, things like that. So that's the big vision of the league as we grow over the next 6 or 7 years. At the club level, it's about upward trajectory, and that can be varying levels of trajectory. But I wanted to grow 30% this year, which was a big ask for our staff. I wanted to grow by 30% attendance, ticket sales, merchandise, memberships, all just 30%. That was the number. And we were under on some things. Even memberships dipped a little bit. Attendance, though, I mean, that's kind of the most important metric to me. And we were up like 25, 26%, which was great. So, financially, we're in a good space right now. It's just keep ticking upward. Where it doesn't have to be quick. We just don't want to flatten out. We just need to keep ticking forward and growing on what we've worked on these last 5 or 6 years.
Got it. Last 2 questions here. What are 3 things that you would like to see improve at the club?
I knew you're going to pull that 3 thing. I knew it. I knew that was coming.
I pulled it a lot on Peter.
I know. And then he called you out for it.
Yeah, he called me out.
So for the club, 3 things for the club. Continued growth of our volunteer staff, because we are only going to go as far as that volunteer staff pushes us, because it is definitely not just me. So we have the growth of the volunteer staff, which I think we will accomplish, which hopefully then creates more opportunities with fan engagement, community outreach, those kinds of things. And then I want to be more competitive on the field. Like I mentioned, the term big club, I like to pick on Tottenham. You're a big club, but never win anything. You're not a big club. And I want to be a club that wins. Our women's team has lifted some trophies. Our men's team has largely not. And while we've had some fantastic results, we haven't been able to string it together for a full season. And so I want to continue to get better. I want to be the club in the Chicago area, certainly, and the western suburbs that's the team I want to go play for, right? I want to be that. I want to be known in the player community and within college coaching and, rec soccer as, man, when I make it for DKCU, I've made it, right? That's like a side thing. But what makes it special for the players is the fans in the stands. To see hundreds of people watching, it's more than most of them get at their college programs, and it's a special environment. So that has to remain the focus, and ultimately that's what funds it, right? Is the people coming in. So we have to continue to just kind of jam through some of those, just that grind. You just can't take your foot off the gas.
Yeah. I mean, I think what you're building is you're having fun with the project. If it wasn't fun, you wouldn't be doing it. And again, you're in one of the best vehicles. Soccer brings people together. My last question is, Messi is here in the U.S. How do you feel about that?
So, it's cool. I lost my a little bit of my path. I was a Chicago Fire season ticket holder for about 13 years.
Wow.
We did it for 1 year while we started the club, but it was just extremely difficult to commit to They were down in Ridgeview still at the time. And truthfully just kind of fell out of love with the way that MLS is, in my experience, is just so corporate. It was all about renewal. It wasn't what can we do for you. It was about, hey, can you renew season tickets? And so I really focus on this lower. Like I think it's great. I was around. I was a season ticket holder when Beckham came over, and he played. It was actually, they played in Chicago on my birthday years ago, and it was like a really cool thing. And I remember, like, man, this is like, wow, we've made it. And then I've kind of just like, yeah, it's cool. It all feels weird. What he's doing on the field, like, I mean, it speaks to his ability, certainly, and it's a good business decision, but it just feels corporate-y, and they're signing so many guys that just, I don't know. It's like MLS can bend the rules when they want to bend the rules, and I don't know the facts. There's two sides to the story, I'm sure, but I just like, yeah, it's cool. I'm not going to stop my life to watch Messi play for Inter Miami.
Yeah.
I didn't stop my life to watch him play for Barcelona. I don't know. I'd rather focus on what impact I can make, and not, it's a boost. It just doesn't move the needle for me.
Yeah, no worries. I'm the same way. We got our blinders on. We're focused on our goals. But we are seeing the Messi effect in the US market, and what to prepare for 2026, and how do we throw this net out so we could catch as much as possible. So yeah, John, it was super cool to have you on. I have 6 fun questions if it's cool to ask.
Go ahead.
Okay. What's your favorite sport besides soccer?
Oh boy, I don't know. Probably NFL. Watching football, real American football.
What's your favorite football and soccer team?
Well, I'm a Bear fan for no reason other than they're close, and I like Notre Dame for college, and I really, like I said, I was a big Fire fan for years. Really, I'm just kind of indifferent now. I'm an old Manchester United guy since they were the first ones in the '90s to market in the U.S. But I've never bought a single. I'm not even a supporter because I've never actually bought like a scarf or a T-shirt or anything.
Yeah.
They're just, you gotta have a Premier League club, so they're it. And I don't know, I'm kind of indifferent on them too.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just kind of if it's on TV, I'll watch it if I get time, and if not, that's okay.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite player? Favorite soccer player? Because if I ask you favorite football player, I'm not gonna know who that is. I don't even know a football team.
No, I mean, I really don't. I mean,
Oh,
I respect a lot of people.
no.
I don't know. I'm too old to have like a favorite.
Okay. Okay. Um, what about do you listen to music? Do you have a favorite song?
Oh boy. I like country music that's not on the radio though.
Okay.
Like I like old Waylon Jennings stuff. I like Turnpike Troubadours. I like Sturgill Simpson, Tyler Childers. I like a bunch of that stuff. And then I also go back to my younger days, and I still like old hip hop and Snoop and Dre and Eminem and Biggie and all that stuff from the '90s. It depends on my mood if the kids are in the car.
Okay, so we got some cowboy and we got some hip hop.
Ghetto cowboy. I'm a ghetto cowboy.
What about favorite food?
Pizza's kind of the go-to.
Okay. And what kind of pizza? Like a pepperoni, pineapple on top, or
No, just meat and cheese.
meat and cheese?
No vegetables. I don't believe in vegetables on my pizza.
Oh, okay. And then the last one, what's your favorite activity?
Oh, I've really started enjoying. I've always enjoyed just going and watching my kids do their things. My girls play club soccer and dance, and my son just started playing soccer. He's only 3. So some of the most peaceful time my wife and I get is when we're going and cheering on the kids. And am not working. I'm not like working for soccer, and I'm not working for work, and I'm just able to just kind of be there. We had a good long day yesterday. I had 2 away games on a Sunday afternoon. We were gone for like 9 hours, and it was just the group in the car and packed lunches and dinners, and it was just like good old family time. And you can't get those hours back.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds like fatherhood right there. I'll ask you some questions offline, but John, before we go, I would like to thank you for taking the time for joining us on the One Soccer Nation podcast.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, and all the best.
Thank you.